Joe, you're up. You did Blue Water
Sorry.
Task Force sampling. It has begun.
Yes, this morning was the first first testing event.
So
and,
for
it went well, except for I couldn't get into the county building because, of course, I did not have a mask. Classic.
I just told him, like, if he just walked around in the parking lot long enough, he would find a mask.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long.
Yeah,
But for those of you who are not familiar, we have our Blue Water Task Force program, which is a community science water quality sampling effort to look for enterococcus, which is an indicator bacteria that can indicate there is harmful sickness causing bacteria in our waters. And so we sample Priest Point Park once a week between Memorial Day and Labor Day. Sometimes I get those mixed up. Yes, that's correct. So yeah, if anybody is interested in that or knows somebody who would be interested in that, it only takes about an hour to collect the sample and drop it off at our local lab. And then we post the results online through our Blue Water Task Force database. And yeah, so holler at us if that's a thing that you're into. Next is, let me pull up my schedule. We have a cleanup coming up. So June 8th is World Ocean Day. Christine, do you want to tell us about it?
Yes, we are going to do one of our downtown cigarette butt cleanups. So it'll just be a quick one, Kurt. It's going to be from 5:30 to 6:30. And we'll meet downtown at the city hall like we have in the past, and we'll just do an hour and pick up cigarette butts so we can keep them from entering the ocean. And that will be our World Oceans Day contribution.
3 hours. 3 hours.
3 hours.
1 hour, Kurt.
Kurt is.
How am I going to break 901 butts if I can't have 3 hours?
Kurt is our master butt picker upper and gets a little enthusiastic. And so
Stop.
In the future, we will leave you and then just bring the butts to my doorstep because you live next door. So you can pick up butts all day, every day if you want. I'll be happy to weigh them. But yeah, it's actually really fun and satisfying to pick up cigarette butts. I don't know why, but it is. And then June 13th, we're in the planning stages of another Yellow Ropes roundup. Jill, do you have any other deets you want to throw out?
Yeah, so we're talking about either June 13th or June 27th. I think it's leaning towards the 13th, it sounds like, but another yellow rope cleanup, but this time up by Mo Clips. So we're just putting together good suggestions for which beach approaches to use and kind of figuring out the details of where to send people. So there will be more information to come about the yellow rope cleanup up at Mo Clips. Probably the last one we'll do until the storms start rolling in again in the fall.
Yeah.
And then we'll probably do the July 4th or July 4th/July 5th, maybe ones.
Yeah, we usually do a July 5th cleanup because of all the plastic fireworks that people love to launch off the beach. There may be an opportunity to do some tabling and outreach on July 4th to sort of spread awareness of the fact that fireworks are full of plastics and a bunch of toxic materials as well. And so maybe try not to launch too many off into the ocean. So if that's something you guys, anybody you know would be interested in spreading that sort of awareness, let us know. We're still in planning stages with the parks because COVID makes everything weird. So, but usually we would just like set up at a beach approach with a table and some brochures and just talk to people about why plastic pollution sucks and please don't contribute to it. So, and then we usually have a cleanup on July 5th. That's, I think, one of our biggest like cleanups of the year. Like we usually get the most trash because.
What beach?
It's going to be a whole bunch of them. We usually go Twin Harbors is probably where our territory, but they're going to be cleanups all up and down the coast because we work with Washington Coast Savers and they sort of coordinate a lot of those big cleanups. But yeah, Twin Harbors is our go-to spot. I think it'll be the bond approach this year, but don't quote me on that. We'll send out more deets. Assuming we
You
have.
know, it would help if you announce a date or a time to also type it out in chat. So if somebody missed it, they can just read it off their screen.
We can do that. And it'll all be
Like-
on like newsletters and stuff.
Okay.
I think that's the last of our updates, our chapter business, unless I'm missing something.
Mm-mm.
Cool. All right. Take it away, Christine.
Okay. I have been so excited for the for this presentation for Kaylee and Bahar to join us. So, but before we give them an opportunity to talk and answer some questions, I sent a YouTube to Liz to show beforehand, which just kind of does a really quick little overview of the youth climate movement. And Liz is also going to put some links in the chat, because you're going to hear a little bit about a couple organizations, one that came out of Seattle called This Is 0 Hour. Another one, Fridays for Future, which you probably all know is connected to Greta Thunberg and the Sunrise Movement. And then also just a side note, Lucy Biggers is the person who hosts this YouTube. And if you happen to be an Instagram person, she's super fun to follow for environmental activism and educational videos. And then the other thing that's really cool is I just watched a movie through Greenpeace not too long ago called Youth versus Government. And if you probably maybe heard about the young people, it started in 2015. They sued the federal government for their constitutional rights to a stable climate. And I think they're mentioned in the YouTube video, but that's also kind of a cool thing to go to youthvgovfilm.com, and then you can learn more about that. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out in the end, but it sure inspired kids around the world. Globally, there are actually quite a few governments being sued by young people for a healthy future. So that's pretty cool. The video totally made me cry, but anyway, so there's those little things. So we're ready for the YouTube. Liz?
All right. I'm going to try it. Let's find it. I'm going to share. All right. You guys see my screen? Is that working?
Yep.
All right.
That's, you want the YouTube one?
Yep. I'm just trying to get to it. There we go.
That-
All right.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
1, 2, 3, go.
In 2019, we saw a grassroots climate movement explode. This movement is led by young people who are urging adults in power to address the climate crisis now, before it's too late.
We are afraid for our lives. We are afraid of an uninhabitable planet.
Stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
Let's take a look back at the year and some of the key moments where young people stood up to create this powerful movement. 2019 began with a new surge of support for young people who sued the United States government over climate inaction in 2015. Juliana versus United States was named after Kelsey Juliana, along with 20 other plaintiffs under the age of 25. The Juliana suit had been prevented from going to court until this February, when more than 30,000 people in 11 days, mostly students, signed on to support the plaintiffs' right to be heard.
People told us that it was hopeless.
They said we could never win.
And then we started winning.
The push was initiated by a climate action group called 0 Hour, led by 16-year-old Jamie Margolin. And it worked. A judge granted the Juliana plaintiffs a hearing date in June. And they aren't the only ones suing over inaction. There are now more than 1,000 similar lawsuits filed in the US and at least 300 more around the world. Cut to March, when 1 million young people joined the movement with the very first global climate strike. Came together through pockets of young activists who had been staging their own weekly strikes around the world. The strikes were called Fridays for Future because kids would skip school on Fridays to protest. It all started in August 2018 by 15-year-old Greta Thunberg in Sweden. A picture of her protesting spread across the internet, and eventually so did her movement. March 15th brought together approximately 1.5 million young people in thousands of cities across the world. And the second event in May was also a success and coincided with the 2019 European Parliament election. Another global climate strike came in September, but we'll get back to that soon. This year also saw 2 viral hashtags amplifying the climate movement. First came hashtag 10-year challenge, where people posted pictures to show how much different spots around the earth have changed in a decade. And hashtag trash tag went viral with people showing before and after photos of community cleanups around the world. Student protesters made their voices heard to speak out against fires burning in the Amazon, shedding light on the shocking effects deforestation could have on global air quality. And most recently, 3 Pakistani teens say they were inspired by the Juliana plaintiffs to sue their government over dangerous levels of air pollution. To end the summer, we saw a huge push in the US to get the 2020 presidential candidates to discuss climate change on the debate stage. The Sunrise Movement, a youth-led group advocating for climate policies, even slept outside the Democratic National Committee's headquarters, demanding a climate-only debate. That didn't happen, but we did get 2 town halls where the Democratic hopefuls shared their plans for climate action and took some of the best questions from, you guessed it, students.
So how can we trust you to put us, the future, go over the wants of large corporations and wealthy individuals?
And in August, in one of the biggest climate statements of the year, Greta Thunberg chose to sail on an emissions-free yacht across the Atlantic to get to the first ever Youth Climate Summit at the UN. There she met scores of other young people who spoke directly to world leaders at the summit in New York. And they did not hold back.
Everyone needs to get involved, particularly to honor the Indigenous sisters, mothers, grandmothers, aunties, and daughters who have been taken from us as part of the genocide that climate change is propagating.
The climate crisis is really happening, and if we don't act now, we will be affected on the future, and we, the kids, will be the one that will pay the consequences.
I have a dream that people in power, as well as the media, start treating this crisis like the existential emergency it is.
The first ever Youth Climate Summit was a 3-day lead up to the United Nations Climate Summit and was bookended by 2 major global climate strikes, where an estimated 7 million people turned out. The crowds were overwhelmingly young people, all imploring adults in power to make a change before it's too late. That's been the theme of the youth climate movement this year. When the adults have failed, young people have taken action for themselves. This movement is still, well, young, so it remains to be seen how much change these movements can drive. But you can't deny we are witnessing something big. And this video featured just some of the groups who are pushing for action nationally and globally. If you want to learn more, there are links to their sites and handles below. Also, let us know in the comments how you're getting involved in the climate movement. Thanks for watching.
So good.
Thanks, Liz. So, just as an aside, many of you, if you're following the news, the climate, the way that media and some organizations have kind of an alarmism sort of approach to it is, while it's true we need to follow the science, I just want to mention that it is very stressful for young people, and that eco-anxiety and climate depression are real terms that kids are facing. I'm so sorry. So anyway, we have been following the Climate Action Club since 2018. And we were invited to speak at a climate assembly that your group had. And we followed your activities as you have planned rallies at the Capitol and the walkout at your school. And we were there when you guys spoke to the Olympia City Council. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk to them and ask them some questions about tonight, is their involvement, and then also kind of maybe a little bit about how you guys are feeling about your future, and about how you feel like adults either are not taking part in making it better. But maybe we'll just start off with just when did the club start, and what inspired it?
Sure. I could start from the very beginning. Actually started by joining I Matter Youth Olympia. And so that's where I got a lot of initial mentoring and just I guess information about the youth climate movement, because I had never been an activist before. Anyway, so that's where we got the Climate Inheritance Resolution and Climate Report Card inspiration from. And so we had a lot of help with that. And then, so basically I first joined I Matter Youth, and then I was gathering petition signatures one day, and I asked Emma, because I knew Emma, she was two years older than me, and she was like one of those really like social kids who really knew how to talk to people, and everyone liked her. So I asked her how to, you know, get more petition signatures, and then she helped me out, and she was like, this is so cool, I want to join. And so together we spoke at the Olympia City Council my freshman year, so that was, yeah, that was like 2018, I think. Anyways, so we spoke there, presented the climate report card, presented the climate inheritance resolution, and nothing really came of that. So the next year we started the Olympia High School Climate Action Club. So now we were an official club at the school. So we had a set advisor and a set time to meet, and we could get more kids that way. And so that year we represented the climate inheritance resolution. And oh, by the way, if you don't know, the climate inheritance resolution sets a goal of net zero carbon emissions for the city of Olympia by 2050. And so that was our main goal. And so yeah, our sophomore year we represented it along with an updated report card, and we had a huge rally there. We had 10 student speakers speaking during public comment, and there were so many kids there weren't enough seats, so a huge bunch of us sat on the ground and everything. It was pretty cool. But yeah, so we presented kind of like why we needed this inheritance resolution. We all had different speeches. Some kids talked about public health, some kids wrote a poem and did that. It was really cool. And so basically after that presentation, we met with the some of the council members, specifically Councilmember Parsley and Councilmember Jones, who I believe is not on the council anymore, and also Rich Hoy, who is another city official. I'm not exactly sure what his title is. But anyway, so then we met with them to try to get it passed, and that's when they had changed our goal in the resolution from net zero carbon emissions by 2050 to revisiting the possibility of a carbon neutral city in 4 years. And that was kind of like alarming because, well, first of all, we were alone in the conference room and we didn't have entire community support with us. But anyways, so that happened, and then, you know, there's the whole like awkwardness where you don't really know what to do because they just presented this proposal and they acted as if it was final, and we thought we were done for. But basically we just like kept going, kept talking with them, and just like I guess held our ground, and in the end they did agree to pass our original resolution July of 2019. And so that has been kind of like the big starting project for our club, and then later we have gotten to other things like climate strikes and testifying for the Thurston climate mitigation plan. But yeah, that's kind of how we started.
Yeah, I think Liz had a link to the resolution. And so if you wanted to read what their resolution was that they took to the city council, it should be in the chat. So you guys can check that out. Bahar, what inspired you to join the club?
Yeah, so I met Kaylee like halfway through my freshman year. It's actually kind of when she was starting to get petition signatures, when her and Emma first introduced the resolution. And Kaylee and I just became like friends right away. We were both in music and stuff together. We had a lot of things in common. And so when she officially founded the club our sophomore year, I was like, I have to join because obviously climate change is very important to me. And Kaylee's like my best friend. I was like, I have to support her. I joined the club. kind of skeptical, really, just like what can youth really do? But like as Kaylee has described, the whole process with introducing the resolution and getting it on the city's agenda and testifying was a really gratifying experience that proved to me like the impact youth can have. So yeah, I kind of just got into the club through Kaylee, and then by the end of our sophomore year, I was elected the vice president, which I've been for like the last 3 years. So yeah.
And now you're president for next year, right? Are you going to be president of the club next year?
No, we're both seniors, so we're graduating. We have a whole new group of officers coming in.
Oh, exciting.
Yes.
Cool. So could you talk a little bit more about the report card? What that was, how that started?
Yeah, so Kaylee was more involved in the initial process, but from, like she mentioned, they joined like the I Matter youth chapter in Lacey or Olympia region. And so on their site, they have like the format really to how to like create the climate report card. So you basically just have to put in like a lot of the information about the city, like population and stuff. Kaylee, if you want to, I don't know like the specific details, but you just add like a lot of the city's information, and through their own algorithms, it like assigns a letter grade to how the city is doing in terms of like carbon capture and their environmental impact. And I think Olympia got a C-, was it? Yeah, C- the first year. So that's when Kaylee and Emma first introduced that to the Olympia City Council in 2018.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you guys went like 3 times.
Yes, it was a long process. Because after it was first introduced, it wasn't really on their agenda till the next year, like 2019. And then they had it on like one specific meeting. So that's when we had all of our club members come and testify and show support. But that was just like the initial meeting. They weren't voting on it then. So like Kaylee mentioned, after that, there was like a lot of back and forth with between us and a few of the council members, where they kind of were trying to negotiate the resolution and trying to get rid of our concrete goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2040. So it took a few months, I think from April when we had that first meeting when it was on their agenda to July when they actually voted and passed on it. So it was like a few months in between where we were talking back and forth with them and continuing to like push for it for the initial goal. And yeah, so we met with them like privately. And then in July, Kaylee and I also spoke at that meeting when they passed it.
Yeah. So it sounds like what they do sort of like cheer you on at the first one and be like, wow, kids, that's a great idea. And then not really. I mean, it's because I mean, how receptive did you feel like they were to you, to really what you were trying to do, as opposed to being like, or did you sort of feel like through the negotiations, you're like, okay, well, they're just, going to try to put something on paper to make themselves look good without really addressing the issues that you guys brought forward?
Yeah, it's kind of exactly how you described it. We felt like after that meeting with like all of our members there at that city council meeting, we thought, oh, it's going to pass right away, and they all seemed super supportive of it. But that was also like when there was a lot of hype around it, and there was like media present, and it was like a more public formal thing, and they didn't want to seem like they were like saying no to kids who are like desperate to fight for our futures. So it seemed like they were very supportive of it. But then it was only after, when we were having more private discussions behind closed doors without, media around, that they were more hesitant to actually commit to the concrete goals that we need to be meeting.
Yeah. It sort of feels like that's the way a lot of politicians are across the world. I mean, Greta Thunberg is crying, for crying out loud, at the conferences. Like, you guys, it's been years now. Yeah. So that was really exciting. Did you guys get to get a chance to go to Tumwater and Lacey? Because I thought on your Instagram, you were gonna go to the Lacey City Council, and for some reason I have it in my head that they weren't very receptive, but maybe I made that up.
No, so basically with our inheritance resolution, that was only with the city of Olympia, and we did
Okay.
that in 2019. But then this whole last year, with the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that's been circulating also, and that's for like the entire county. And so Olympia, Tumwater, Lacey, were all voting on that a few months ago. And so we also went to Lacey and Tumwater and testified in support of the mitigation plan. So it was separate from our resolution, but the mitigation plan is also like a really comprehensive plan. I think it has like 70 different actions that each of the cities will be taking to reduce their carbon emissions, I think by 80% by 2050, something like that. So yeah, we did testify at Lacey and Tumwater as well, but it was for the mitigation plan.
Okay.
Yes.
How did you feel like they received you at those city councils? Or did you really get a sense it was just?
You know, it was all over Zoom, time of COVID.
Yeah.
It was a weird thing too, because like we couldn't have like our cameras on, so we were just like black squares talking. So it didn't have like the same impact that it had when we were in Olympia in person. But Tumwater was pretty supportive, and they like passed the mitigation plan, I think, pretty easily. But there was kind of a problem with Lacey. Lacey has 2 climate change deniers on their city council. And so they weren't very supportive of the plan. And they also were kind of skeptical of us students because we're all from like Olympia High School, like Olympia region. So after we'd finished talking, they're kind of like, okay, is there anyone from Lacey here to talk? Because like they just want to hear from their own constituents, which I understand, but it's like Olympia and Lacey are like right next to each other.
You still shop there, so you're.
Yeah, exactly. I know, I'm traveling there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, does anybody in the audience have any questions about their city council experience? Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the climate strike questions. Anyone?
Liz?
I have a question. I'm just curious, like, because we kind of started with like, what's your dream job? And like, you guys are obviously starting out on what I assume will be amazing careers in whatever you choose. And I guess because I started out as a scientist and I'm like just now getting more into activism. And given the experiences that you have, I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts as like what your role will be in this fight going forward? Like, has this really like lit the fire of like, we need to attack these officials and make them change fast? Or is it more like, I'm going to just do the science because I just can't deal with these people, you know, like how has it like sort of changed your views on what you want to, like how you want to fight this fight?
I think like, I don't know, seeing the behind the scenes of it, I think like personally, I'll probably keep attacking it from a more political standpoint because I do think, I don't know, sometimes I question like, I can keep like yelling at politicians, but I guess it's up to them in the end to actually pass like the comprehensive policies we need. But like future wise, like I'm not gonna make it like my career because I don't know. I don't know how you guys have been doing it for so long. It's like been exhausting, and I've been an activist for like 3 years. So in terms of longevity, it might be a little too emotionally taxing. But it's definitely always going to be a part of like who I am, and always like I'm always going to be looking to push for policies I support and speak with politicians, even if it's not like my main career. I don't know, Kaylee, what about you?
Yeah, for me, well, I mean, I want to study Earth systems in college, so I would be doing, well, definitely like having my career be in like environmentally related. I guess in terms, I'm definitely always gonna like go to rallies like for the rest of my life. Like that's always really fun. I really enjoy it, and it's like inspiring and everything. But I wouldn't be like an active organizer because it is draining, and I don't think it is for me specifically. I mean, as a high schooler, like, what other options do you have besides activism? So that's what a lot of high schoolers end up doing, activism and organizing, even if we might have different interests that can also be targeted towards the issue of climate change. But once again, like, I'm a high schooler, I'm not going to get a degree in climate science right now. So you just like start off with activism, which like taught me a lot too. I think activism is a really great thing to experience, and just being around other kids. But anyways, sorry, the original question was.
I think you answered it.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, you're good. Thank you.
Yeah, so on May 24th of 2019, you guys planned a school climate walkout at the end of the day. And I was curious about, or just thought maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that, because I thought it was really cool. And I was really proud that my daughter took part in that. I was like, yes, skip school. This is important. But I remember I thought that I heard there was a little bit of backlash. Like some of the teachers were like, I'm still going to do a quiz, and like kids missed stuff. So I was wondering if you could just tell us what that was like, trying to, it's happening globally and it makes sense for you guys to want to do it. So how did your principal react, and how did you find in planning it? How did that go when you planned it?
Yeah, we definitely took inspiration from like the global strikes that were going on. But it was like a weird thing because we're a school club, but we couldn't like get school to sponsor it because they can't like be pushing for students to leave class because they were like unexcused absences, which is like the point, to show like we're willing to give up our education to fight for this. Our principal in general is like super supportive. Well, they can't like officially say anything and like show support. So it was like a weird thing where we did do at the end of the day in sixth period. And we're told our own club members to like give your teachers a heads up that you're going to be leaving at the end of class. And I feel like in general, most of the teachers understood. But Kaylee, I mean, I think right? There's a few teachers that were.
Yeah, there were a few, but I think in general, the teachers were pretty clear on their stance. So I guess you kind of saw it coming. If you did have a teacher that you knew clearly did not support this, I'd say as a whole though, our school was a lot more supportive, even like compared to Capitol High School. I think we got really lucky with admin in general, like, not like explicitly supporting this event, but kind of saying, all right, here are the rules, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, and being super clear with us. I think we were super lucky to have helpful admin.
Yeah, cool. And you guys did let's see, I think in July, I don't know if you partnered with or you helped them, the climate conscious youth of Oli, put on a climate strike at the Capitol.
And we had a question from Justin over there.
Justin.
Hey, I was just curious. I think it's really cool that you guys walked out, and I think that it makes a large statement. And I was curious to know if you found that, I guess, what do you think the percentage of students that participated in this was in your overall school?
I think we had about maybe 250 to 300 kids come out, and our school is about 1,900. So,
okay.
I mean, not a majority, but like it's still like a pretty good chunk of students, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful when you think about that number of students making a decision to say, hey, if I get a bad grade on a quiz, or if I am not accepted by my teachers, then that's okay, because there's something important we need to talk about.
Yeah,
so congratulations.
Thank you. Kurt, do you have a question?
Oh, Kurt, you're on mute.
Okay, there you go. Can you hear me now? No, it just listening to you guys and thinking back when I was involved with things in actually early college, and when you're in the school environment and it seems like you're a bit more concerned, everybody's worried about the impressions that they will be made about them when they're allowing you to say and do the things you do. And I don't think that it's changed that much, other than the environment of the teachers has gotten a little bit more tolerant and liberal. I could tell you stories about back in the day when, they'd throw you out of school for a few days because you said your mind. But I'm wondering, when you have these opportunities, do you feel it from the parents or what? I'm still reflecting back on Lacey too, because that irritates me, but it's certainly not unheard of. There's always these naysayers, and they're going to pretend to be tolerant, and they hate your guts in the side. Oh, and one other thing, I tell my kids are a few years older than you. Just remember that the first day after the last day of high school, none of what they say matters. You're on into the world, and don't let any of that or any impressions you have left with other people who like to say things that oh, what will they say? Don't worry about it. Who cares? Anyhow, the parents, the variety of parents that are with the kids, not necessarily the parents through the your organization, but in general, how do they reflect? Are there any public statements against you from the parents?
We did also try. I mean, most of our communication was through Instagram, and Instagram stories, and usually parents don't see those. So I think, through those venues, we mostly avoided the parents, and it was also a voluntary thing. So if your kid didn't want to do it, it was fine. So not any noticeable or organized backlash.
Yeah, I think there are actually some parents came in support, just lining up in the back. I remember, yeah, there's a whole group of parents. So I think that was really encouraging. But yeah, I didn't really see any public backlash.
Good. So you guys have planned 2 relatively large climate marches at the Capitol that were very successful, had an incredible amount of people turn out for those, a lot of really good signs. and Kaylee, you made King 5 News. So that you had student speakers, you had student musicians. That was really cool. So there was live music. And then there was one that I missed that was in December, and you guys marched down from the Capitol. That one looked really cool. You marched down to Capitol Lake. So, and it looked like the city council, a few people from city council had showed up in support. So that was cool. I don't remember. Did you guys get any representatives or senators that came?
Yeah, I think Councilmember Rollins was there, and I think Councilmember Parsley was there as well. But also, Eliana was she's from Timberline. She graduated last year, I believe. She was the main climate strike organizer. She just was super involved with our club. So our club helped with the planning the art build and everything. But she was the main coordinator. She was the one getting the license and everything.
Yeah, that's cool. So how did those marches, how did that make you guys feel to be a part of?
It's awesome. It's so great. It's seeing so many other kids who believe in the same thing that you do, and just it's kind of rejuvenating, because you spend months planning these events and just working so hard, and then I guess that's the reward, being with all these other people and having that really, I guess, hyped up experience. It gives you energy to keep going for as long as you need to, until the next big event.
Yeah. Bahar, how'd you feel about it?
Yeah, similar to Kaylee, it really is such a energizing experience to be surrounded with so much hope. I think it just gives me a shot of hope, because I see how many people actually care about climate change, and it truly makes you feel we can actually do something. But it is weird. I think we see all these like big marches and protests, but then it's like what comes out of it. So it's always like a weird transition, like, okay, yes, that was amazing, such a fulfilling experience, but let's get to action now. Let's turn the promises we made during the march into tangible action.
Yeah, for sure. Which is why visiting the city council and staying on them for so long was really critical step too. What was cool about those marches is that you had people of all ages. Like it wasn't just youth. There were older people with really good signs too, and like really little kids, and even dogs wore signs. I remember from photos. So those were some big things that are kind of like the global movement. But you guys have done some cool stuff at your school as well. There was something I remember something in the news about buses. Like somehow you were part of getting 3 battery powered school buses. And then you guys also got those signs about no idle. Wait, what is it? The no idle zone.
Yeah, don't idle signs. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about some of your in-school stuff that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I can talk about the electric buses. So we actually I think we started that project beginning of junior year. And we had that in mind to do that. And we reached out to a school district representative that were familiar with Hillary Seidel. And we were like, okay, we have this idea of getting electric school buses because we've seen several districts around the state have done it. And she was like, oh yeah, you know what? The district is actually in the process of getting a grant for this. So it was like a good thing where they were already working on that too. And so we collaborated with her, and she asked for just like help from us on how like student view of getting the buses and why we thought it would be important, and different ways of like getting the word out and spreading the message about it basically, and getting awareness about it. And then, so yeah, we were kind of more involved in like the early stages of getting the message out and showing student support for the decision to get buses. And then the school district itself handled the more financial aspect, I guess. So they got the actual grant, and they purchased 3 for our school district. And Kaylee, do you want to talk about signs? Yeah.
So we bought no idle zone parking signs. We sold Douglas fir saplings thanks to Anthony, who donated them, and so we sold them at like before one of our school plays, and that's how we raised money. And so we were able to buy 10 no idle zone parking signs. We also bought Climate Action Club stickers with our logos on them, and so we have one of those stickers on each of the signs. If you go to the Olympia High School parking lot, any of the parking lots, you will see those signs. And yeah, it's just we were gonna have an entire like no idle zone campaign with it to have people pledge not to idle and have a whole week educational awareness campaign. But once again, COVID hit, so in the end we saved the signs, and then this school year in November we put the signs up.
Yeah, that's very cool. I want a sticker. That's what I got out of that, is I want a sticker. Yeah, that's really cool. You also last year you guys had planned a youth climate conference in April, but that wound up being canceled. What can you tell us what that was going to be, and do you think the club's going to do it next year?
Yeah, so the Youth Climate Conference, we did that like in collaboration with the Capital High School Climate Club. And that was gonna be like a pretty big thing, like a full day thing where we're gonna have a lot of organizations like your own come and like table to present, whatever things they have going on, and then also have several workshops open for people to circle through different workshops. And we're gonna have catering too, like you could buy food. It was gonna be like a kind of like a legit conference, and we were really excited about that. We basically planned everything and we were ready to go, but yeah, COVID hit and everything was canceled. But we have, as Kaylee put in the chat, we had 7 workshops, all student led, about various topics, and we were really excited about it. But we had to cancel, of course. But we have talked to our like new officer group, and we're pretty sure they're gonna put it on for next April.
Oh, good. Cool, cool. And then you guys did a tree planting recently with Nisqually River Foundation.
Yes, that was really fun. It was just like a lot of times you have community service events or like, you know, outdoorsy environmental community service events to, you know, as like team bonding. So we had that earlier in the year. And then more recently we volunteered at a farm, at a local farm. And so that was another one of our team bonding events. And so it's just like ways to get connected and have fun outside.
That's what we're all about here at Surfrider, for sure.
Yeah. So, anything else about the club that I missed that you guys were doing? Other cool things?
I mean, this year has been a weird year. Like we would normally be doing strikes and everything, but of course, we want to stay safe. So all of our meetings have been over Zoom, and that's kind of actually opened up an opportunity to do more education, because I mean, we're young and we don't really know like that much about all the different aspects of climate change. So kind of a big focus of this year has been on environmental justice. And we actually had a guest speaker come in and talk about different aspects of environmental racism. And so like our officer team kind of got like a training course in it. And then we also presented it to our club members. And so that was like a really nice learning opportunity. And we also do like a yearly environmental assembly. This year was adapted to be virtual, so we kind of just made like videos to present to the school, and we made sure to include environmental racism as one of our topics as well. So kind of the whole school kind of got like a mini lesson on it.
Yeah, that's cool. So do you guys feel at all like you have felt eco-anxiety?
Yeah, Kaylee, you want to start?
Yeah. I don't really know how to describe it. It's kind of like burnout, you know, because like what you're dealing with is so big. It feels like, does anything I do matter, you know? And it's kind of hard, especially hard like online, because you're not seeing people. I feel like in a regular school year, you'd still have eco-anxiety, but you would like, you know, have weekly club meetings and see people who would like consistently go to clubs and, you know, be in the same boat as you. And that helps a lot, but this year was harder. I don't know. It's hard. I don't really know how to deal with it still.
Yeah.
It's like a constant like inner struggle of like, oh, it feels good to be doing things, but is like what I'm doing actually gonna have an impact on like the grand scale of things? So it's like, yeah, struggle of feeling like, is what I'm doing worth anything? And also just a lot of frustration about the global lack of action.
Yeah. Well, or yeah, the denial and the inaction since 1950s.
Yeah.
When we knew better.
Yeah, it just
that feeling doesn't go away.
Yeah.
So just hashtag self-care it up as often as you can.
Yeah. It's weird to be like, okay, we're losing the polar bears and I have a calculus test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you need calculus to figure out the rate at which we're losing all these species. So I'm just saying it matters.
Yeah.
We get really dark. Sorry, I just went to a really dark place.
No. So what do you hope or wish? I mean, we kind of know like we want politicians to step up, but what could you tell us about just kind of adults in general, or like an organization like Oly Surfrider? Like, how can we support you, or how do you wish that adults would kind of step up, and what kind of things do you think they could do to be in support? By the way, I do think, everyone, that we can donate to this club, just as a side. Besides that, though, like, what do you feel or wish that adults would do?
I think like outside of like climate organizations, just like with teachers I've talked to and like parents and family friends, I think like a lot of adults have kind of given up and they're just like, youth, you're our last hope, and just put it all on us. But I just like wish more adults realize, like, no, you guys are still walking and breathing and talking. Like, you can still be doing this work too, right beside us. It's not just all up to us. I mean, you guys are the ones who created the problem, so you should be doing something and not feel like so defeated and just like, here, students, it's all up to you.
Yeah.
Kaylee, do you want to add anything?
Well, we get that question a lot. How can adults help? And of course, yes, money always helps. Yeah. But besides that, it's like, I think in addition to, like, I feel like students have a unique voice in the sense that, like, we have the, you know, pathos part of all of our activism. So, like, you know, at least politicians can like pretend to care and everything. But I think adults, like, you guys also have a lot of power as, you know, parents and as concerned community members. Like, that still has significant weight on its own. And you guys are also voters. So that's I mean, even more powerful than what we have, even if we don't have like official political voice yet. Yeah, I mostly just echoing what Bahar said.
We had a question from Karen and Riley. How can we learn when there will be rallies or marches led by the club if you don't have Instagram?
I know, that's tricky. I'm like, I post when they have them, so, but that's their Instagram to our Instagram.
We usually try to get the word out to local organizations. Both Kaylee and I are part of YECO, which is the Youth Education Community Outreach group, which is part of TCAT. And so I don't know if like you guys are affiliated with TCAT or like are part of their newsletter. We usually try to also get it in their newsletter, so they would share it with those people.
We can put it in like newsletter though too. I mean, if we know ahead of time, we could always throw it in our newsletter.
Yeah, definitely. We can give you guys a heads up so you can put it in the newsletter. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Instagram is our main form of communication. So if our Instagram could tell your Instagram, and you could maybe, if you have a mailing list, we could get in contact there and let you know then. I should write down to get you in contact with our new officers and everything. I will do that.
I think you did, Kaylee. You already sent me the on the phone. I lost my vocabulary.
And you know Christine, right? Our new public relations, another Christine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just to make sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions from the audience?
You have a Facebook page.
Young people don't do Facebook, I don't think. It's for
Well,
old
I know,
people like us, Kurt.
It's no, I understand that, but how else could we learn about, other than you having to go out and find our individual emails? If you had something posted, then people could leave an email or, post, so you could communicate with other people.
I think for things like the bigger strikes at the Capitol, I think they usually have like Facebook events created for it. Kaylee and I weren't really part of like the social media aspect of awareness for the strikes. That was all like led by Eliana Kaye, like Kaylee mentioned. But I think there usually are like Facebook events for the larger community strikes. I don't really use Facebook, so I don't know how the event stuff works. But we can make sure to just like always send you guys the info, and you can share it with like within your meetings.
Yeah. There you go.
Totally. Yeah. I love that. I have a question, like kind of going back to what I call the conservation blues or eco anxiety, as you will. Like I work in a conservation field, and so all my peers are also consumed with anxiety and like struggle with like keeping the energy, and all that struggle is real. And I'm just curious, sort of, I still have lots of friends that are outside of my field that don't seem that concerned, and they're just sort of shrug it off. And I'm just curious, like your peer group outside of those that are clearly share your passion and concern and are directly involved, but like that larger group of students, Are these concerns that like you feel the majority of your peers share, or are you still also, in addition to your work, like find yourself trying to like encourage and convince others to like join the fight? Because I know I wish it was ubiquitous in my age group of like everybody should care about this because it's an existential threat, but that's not, people have their own problems that that they're focusing on. So I'm just curious how like the proportion of your peers, how many of them are really concerned about this and how many are like, what?
Most of us are pretty concerned. I mean, once again, we're Gen Z, and I feel like Olympia High School in general is a pretty woke high school, I guess. And we do try to stay updated on issues, and we have environmental assemblies that go to the entire school, so everyone is aware and cares to an extent. I feel like definitely the younger generations are more invested. I mean, personally, like I have like two different, like I have a regular friend group where I share classes with, like who I share classes with, and then another like climate activist friend group. So they are like different. I know everyone cares, but it's just like how much you're willing to put into it. But also, like, not gonna lie, I realize that like for climate activism, as long as you have like a set group of really dedicated people, you don't need everyone involved, like in terms of like the heavy lifting. As long as you have a solid group of really committed people, that should be enough to make an impact.
Yeah, I think in general, like our student body is like aware that climate change is a problem and they like accept science. But there is like a hurdle for a lot of kids. Like they're concerned about it and worried about their futures, but it's almost like a paralyzing fear where they like just don't do anything about it, which is like understandable. And like I have a lot of friends who like care about climate change, but they're not like part of our club and they're not like taking active or like doing active work. And I do think there's like another problem, just like overloading. Like there are so many problems that it can be exhausting, worrying about all of them. But yeah, like Kaylee said, it's not, I think a lot of people are like aware that it's an issue and are concerned, but it definitely is a smaller group of us that are taking action, but it's a strong group of us.
Awesome.
Cool. Anybody else?
This has been great. I would hope we can have more presentations by youth groups on the subjects like this pertaining to the environment, because as much as they may be getting from us and their contact, we're learning a lot from them, because as we get older, we're not there anymore, we're not the youth anymore, and it's always nice to stay in touch with the current administration, as I might say, which you guys are.
Mm-hmm.
So we found you on Instagram, and we'll be happy to come out and march or join your rallies as well. And we're just a couple old people.
Living the retired dream, just doing all the things. You guys are amazing.
It really does mean a lot to have all of your guys' support. We really couldn't have done like the work we've done these last few years without local grassroots like organizations support and help and guidance. And you guys have been doing this work for so long. So yeah, thank you all.
Yeah, I know you're tired of hearing, as a teacher teaching environmental issues for over 12 years, kids were kind of tired hearing like, it's your generation is going to have to save us. So you do kind of have that stress, but I have to say that like Kaylee mentioned, you have a lot of power in your young activism. While you can't maybe vote yet, there is a lot of power. I remember when I was running around town trying to get people to stop using plastic straws, and I talked to the city council and they were like, oh, aren't you cute? And then it seemed like the next night there was a 5-year-old who made like the nightly news. And she was talking about in her little community, she was asking restaurants to stop using plastic straws. And I was like, like, it's always the kids. And so, I mean, it is stressful for you guys, but it excites me, the power that you have. And I'm really proud that you have at least, hopefully you have the peace of mind to balance that stress, and then look at what you've accomplished. And it's incredible.
That's why we're like, it's up to you, youth, because we just don't listen to each other. So that's why it's on you, because we just started talking past each other this whole time. But when you talk, we're like, tell us more.
You do remember not too long ago, last couple of years, where the veterinarians pulled a long straw out of the nasal passage of a sea turtle. And I think that one image really grabbed a lot of people who hadn't realized just how bad a straw could be. They said, oh, come on. Well, that's one example. And I'm sure they realized there were many more examples, but images like that drive something home. And I still think that one particular image is what really started bringing it home to people to realize, yes, straws really are not a good thing for the environment. Sea turtles are kind of a hard creature not to feel loving towards and sorry for when something like that happens. And maybe that's part of the thing that you guys need to maybe even go out and show some of the examples that happen in your own community of climate change and the negative effects it has, and put that out there.
Yeah.
We'll bring that up with the new officers. That is a really good point.
Good.
Justin, did you have a question? No? Okay. Okay, well, you guys are awesome. And unless there's any other questions, I think we probably should let you get back to studying for your finals.
Thank you guys so much. I feel inspired and stoked to keep working despite the exhaustion and anxiety.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you guys for your work.
Yeah, thank you. And good luck the rest of your school year and finals, and then off to your new adventures. Kaylee, you're going to Stanford? Yeah, Bahar, what is your next step?
I'm going to Yale.
Nice.
Baller. Y'all are just ballers.
Yeah, you guys
Wow.
are very cool.
La-di-da.
Killing it. Just killing it. Well, thank you all so much. I'm going to stop recording.